Hello, my name is Mila Komarova, and today I am going to do my exploratory presentation, and I'm going to do it on Greek Empire and Roman Empire. I think there's a lot of things we have to consider when we talk about how to be great society. Um, I feel like for everyone it's different, but for me, I would say it's fairness, how free the people are, the security they have, the compassion, how you, not really how rich the country is, but or society, but it's mostly absence of poverty and welfare benefits. Uh, it's also could talk about, I found this article and it said what makes a good society great. Um, and they talk about the five principles of good society, and one of them is we'll have a decent basic standard of living. We're secure and free to choose how we lead our lives. We develop our potential and flourish um, materially and emotionally. uh, where we can participate, contribute, and treat all with care and respect. And one of the last ones is building a fair and sustainable future for the next generation. I think all of those are really important concepts. One of the first things that I'm going to compare and contrast is art. So, Greek art was considered pretty superior to the all the other um, arts, especially Roman art. And sometimes we think of Greek art as a as not as original, but it's actually a Roman copy of a Greek original that we see most of the time. It's also pointing out that we, with Greek, it's mostly Greek sculptures, and they were producing ideal art form where as the goal of Roman artists was to produce more of a realistic portraits, and there often were decorations. Not all the Roman art was imitated the Greek forms. So Greeks really liked utilitarian objects, and Romans really loved living spaces. So when it came to Greek art, it was also divided into Mycenaean, geometric, archaic, and Hellenistic periods, um, and the classic period also. And during Hellenistic period, there was a big demand on copies of a previous art. So, and we also think of Greek art as sculptures like Venus de Milo, and mostly mosaics and frescoes, which are the wall paintings. Those are typically associated with Roman culture. And of course, all both cultures worked on different mediums, not only just sculpture or paintings. Um, the Greek poetry, the Greek pottery was actually very very popular, and it was very popular import in Italy. When it came to economy, and we're gonna look at also Greek and Roman empires, the economy was basically based on agriculture, where, for instance, Greeks they lived on small self-sufficient wheat producing farms, but unfortunately they did not have good agricultural practices, and they were incapable of feeding themselves. So therefore, big estates took ended up taking over. And that's when they produced wine and olive oil, uh, which were also one of the biggest exports of the Romans. Um, but the Romans, they imported most of their wheat and any other produce that they could provide with all important staples, but they could also farm. They were big on trade, and and it's an interesting fact that Greeks considered trade as a degrading thing. So Rome actually developed into an urban center, and it was like a hot center for a lot of people. And manufacturing was also an urban occupation, and both Greece and Rome worked mines. Um, Greece had slaves, but the economy of Rome was very dependent on slave labor from expansion until the late empire. And both uh, of Rome actually debased its currency to fund the empire. The social classes actually changed over time, but the basic divisions of early Greek and Rome, Greece and Rome consisted of freedmen, slaves, foreigners, and women, and only some of them were counted as citizens. So for Greece, he was slaves, freedmen, medics, citizens, and women. And in Rome, it was slaves, freedmen, plebeians, and patriarchs. One of the other things that I compared and contrasted is the role of women in Greek society and Roman Empire. In Athens, according to literature, women were valued for abstaining from gossip, managing the household, and, of course, producing children. And aristocratic women was actually secluded in women's quarter, and if they had to go in public places, they had to be accompanied by someone. In Greece, women could own, but they could not sell their property, and they were also subject to her father. Um, Even if they were married, he could the father could change his mind and ask for her in return. And it's also interesting that Athenian woman was not a citizen, whereas the Roman women were legally subject to paterfamilias, where the dominant male of her household of birth or household of her husband. So she could own or dispose property and kind of do whatever she wants to do. We also know that Roman women were valued for modesty, maintenance of harmony, and being one man woman. And one thing that really it was different from Greek women is that Roman women were actually Roman citizens. Another thing was the government and how they ran both Greek and Roman Empire. So originally, kings were ruled, they were ruling Athens, and then um, uh, oligarchy came around, and then democracy, which is when the citizens started voting. So the city states they joined together to form leagues that came into conflict, and which ended up weakening Greece and leading to a lot of war and a lot of battles. And later, kind of led to a Roman Empire. With Roman Empire, kings were originally governing the Rome, but after Rome was observing with everything that was happening around the world, they ended up eliminating kings and they established more of a mixed republican form of government where they combine elements of democracy, oligarchy, and monarchy. Um, so, in time, ruled by one, returned to Rome, but in a new, initially, um, we known as Roman emperors. And when the Roman Empire split apart, and in the West, they will eventually became small kingdoms. And these are my references, and I hope you enjoyed watching my presentation. Thank you.